All right. Well, I got everything pushed. All the buttons are pushed. Everything's recording. We're live.
We're live. All right.
Yes.
If you guys out there in the audience notice anything funky, please let us know. We'll try to fix it.
It's always dangerous, by the way, when you open it up to like audience participation.
It's true.
And be like all the comments you don't want to hear, by the way.
Listen, I could not find my lipstick. All right, don't yell at me about that. All right. So before we continue, do you need this?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good now. I got all the buttons
all
pushed.
of our notes. Get to my correct notes. All right. So like I said, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you could please take a minute to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, like this episode, and please share it with all of your friends, family, neighbors, precinct people, people in your neighborhood, all that. We'd really appreciate it. If you would like to support our show and keep us going into the new year, we need that support to keep the lights on. So if you would like to sponsor an episode or a series of episodes, or if you would just like to donate to us, you can do that through our website or by dropping us a Rumble rant or a YouTube super chat. And then we also want to give a special shout out to Steve Abrams on his birthday. Happy birthday, Steve. We had an awesome time with you last episode. And if you as an audience member missed that episode, highly recommend going back and watching it. Steve has led a very fascinating life here in South Florida, Palm Beach County, Boca Raton. A lot of what we see in our infrastructure and just the structure of the way that both the city of Boca as well as the county of Palm Beach County is operating today is due to Steve, and he left a really amazing legacy. And I also, Steve, personally would really like to hear what your favorite Christmas parade float was, because if you were watching from the balconies, I'm curious to see which one you liked, because I had my favorites and I want to hear yours. So
the Boca Christmas parade.
Yeah, so the Boca Christmas parade, so much fun. I always have loved going. My brother participated for years because he was in NJROTC at Boca High. And so we always went to go watch him in it. And then I kind of took some time off when my kids were teeny tiny. And then as they got a little bit older, we started going more. And then in the last couple of years, and especially this year, we had like opportunity for like 3 different groups wanted to pass. We're like, hey, would you like to be on our float? Would you like to be on our float? I'm like, we went from no floats to all the floats. So we ended up my kids' dance studio. We were on their float. It was really, really pretty, and it was so much fun. I helped design the float and put it together.
Oh, it looked, from the pictures that you shared, that looked really neat.
It was really neat. We did because the theme of the parade was Winter Wonderland. My children attend a Christian performing arts company. And so they did the wonder of Christmas is Jesus. So they tied in the wonder. We made it a Winter Wonderland, which really messed with my sense of like time, because Jesus was not born during the winter, most likely. And he was not born in a place where there was snow. And so I was like, okay, I have to suspend my reality. But the reality
it was a creative and dramatic
interpretation. That's exactly it. I was like, because when they first asked me to do that, I was like, but he wasn't born December 25th in the winter, and there was no snow. Even if he had been, there doesn't snow in Bethlehem. It only snows in Jerusalem, maybe once in a blue moon. Like there was no snow, and they're all looking at me like I've lost my mind. And I'm like, okay, come on, put that mindset on. So it's a lot of fun. It was a big hit. My girls were angels. My son was a sheep.
Aww.
And all the little girls were like, oh, because they were wearing these little crowns and wings. It was super cute.
I feel like I would have wanted to be a sheep. I think that's like way more fun.
It was so, he loved it.
Yeah.
He was wearing like these big baggy sweatpants. He had a blast. And then he was like, the whole time. I walked next to him. It was so fun. I highly recommend being in a parade.
I think the only time I've ever walked in a parade is like for Chip in Lauderdale by the Sea a couple years ago.
4th of July parade. Yeah. And you like throw candy out of the audience, and little kids
we
are like,
wanted to do that. They won't let us do it. Boca's crackdown. We can't hand out,
actually,
throw candy.
I take that back. Where I went to college, Cedarville University, the village of Cedarville is known for the father of Labor Day coming from the village of Cedarville.
I feel like I knew
and
this
so
story.
The Labor Day parade was like a really big deal in town. Yeah. And then we had a homecoming parade, like homecoming weekend, and I think I walked in that at least once. So anyways, so I guess
That's fun.
But this year coming up, I get to be in the Keeper Day parade.
Ooh, see, I'm telling you, parades are fun. I was like, let's do this again. I'm doing this again next year. I'll find a float. I'll be like, excuse me, do you need someone to come with you?
I volunteered.
I volunteer as tribute.
The real parade you want to be in, though, are the boat parades, because like you go from just like float on the street to a float in the water.
Oh, it's like next level?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like tonight is the Pompano Beach parade.
Oh. It's tonight?
On the ground.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure
the
it's
boat boat parade is.
Well, as I was driving over here, I saw like the barricades and everything, but boat parade's next week.
I was going to say
next week.
Pompano's Friday night and then Fort Lauderdale Saturday, right?
I think so. It's always
same weekend,
like back to back.
Yeah. With I want to do a boat parade. That's what I gotta get. So if you have a boat and you want to be in the Boca Boat Parade, let me know. I'll help decorate your boat.
And what's hilarious is there's always like the group that has like the Trump flags and stuff on their boat.
That was Sarah's boat
and
2
then
years
the
ago.
city's like, no, this is not a political event. And you're like, you're really gonna like, how are you gonna stop that?
How are you gonna stop it? As soon as you get out of the water, they're like on it. They're just gonna be like, let's go.
No, she won a prize. We were in the Pompano Boat Parade 2 years ago, I want to say. And it wasn't Trump stuff per se, but it was like red, white, and blue. It was like a patriotic. We were like, she was blaring like Whitney Houston's,
It's my favorite one. The Star Spangled Banner.
Well, it was that. I think she did a version. I think she did like God Bless America or America the Beautiful. One of those,
Yeah.
And it was like a whole bunch of patriotic songs. And she won a prize. She won a prize in the parade.
People like it. Look, let me tell you, there were people. The atmosphere. It's always fun, the parade, but I just feel like the atmosphere was so happy. Like
I think
happier than it's been in a long time in the world.
General consensus these days.
People were so excited to see. They were so excited to see the nativity scene. They were so excited to see like Christmassy things. They're just like so excited. Like just it was like palpable. It was crazy.
Well, we had Lighthouse Glow last night.
Oh yeah.
Point.
So what's that?
So that's where they light up the big Christmas tree at the park.
Oh, it's a Christmas tree lighting.
And
we had
menorah
that.
lighting.
So
Santa comes and the kids get to take pictures with Santa. We had a whole bunch of local vendors set up.
Yeah, we did that last week. The Christmas tree lighting in Meisner Park. There was like 5,000 people. It's crazy.
Yeah, we were gonna get dinner from up that way last Friday night, and then my sister remembered that it was Christmas tree lighting, and she's like, "Yeah, we're gonna."
It's crazy.
Think about something
That's
else.
crazy. We had to park.
Plan B.
Yeah, we went to that. Now it's kind of becoming tradition. We go to the Christmas tree lighting. We go to all the good Jews with the Christmas stuff. It's really funny because actually in Boca, almost all the city council members are Jewish, so they're all the city council members are up on stage to light the Christmas tree, all wearing Stars of David because they're all Jewish. Yeah, it's just really funny. So, and then we do the parade, and there's a few more events going on. I think we're gonna try to go to. It's so fun, and Boca's such a small town. Like it's
not as small as Lighthouse Point.
I know it's not as small as Lighthouse Point, but like as we're on the parade, we keep seeing people that we know. I had people sending me pictures of my daughter today because she's on the other side of the float, and she's like, "Look, my friend posted this on Facebook. Like she was at the parade. Isn't that your daughter?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's her." She's like, "Yeah." And then we were with one of my friends, and she's a teacher, an elementary school teacher at one of the schools in Boca. So she's just like the mayor of Boca. No offense, Steve, but she's just waving, "Mrs. Vasquez, Mrs. all the kids, everybody, like every 5 seconds, kids are like, "Oh, it's my teacher!" And it was so fun. So because it's a small town, so it's a lot of fun to So shout out Boca for putting that together. I cannot imagine the logistical nightmare of doing that. So
yeah, I was driving up Federal
like a 60 float
through Boca yesterday morning early, and they already had all the
barricades.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the barricades, and fighting like getting all of the floats in the correct order, because then as you go down by Sanborn Square, they like name off the floats and like say, so they have to have the correct order. Like it's very like
it's a whole production.
It's a whole
sure.
production. Yeah. So, anywho, yeah. What else? So should we?
Let's get right into
okay.
it.
So Lauren, tonight we're going to be both interviewing as well as your guest hosting. So if you got other stuff you want to chat about, feel free to throw it out.
All right.
All things local politics. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what brings you here tonight.
That is such an open-ended
I
question.
know.
So,
I kind of am feeling very loosey-goosey with my questions.
I don't know. It's like, how long do you got? Like, is this like a counseling session where I'm going to share a lot of information?
Listen, it can be very therapeutic. Just remember we're being recorded.
Yeah,
and it's live.
So I'm a 5th generation Floridian.
What?
5th generation, yeah.
That's crazy.
My grandmother's father and uncle were up in Jacksonville during like the Prohibition and were like bootleggers.
They were bootleggers.
So the story goes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna get a call from my dad afterwards. Like, don't talk about that. But they were like kind of involved in all that. I really have like zero relationship with that side of the family or anything. But my grandmother's wonderful. But the story she's told is 5th generation Floridian. I've been in South Florida my entire life except for college. Grew up in Fort Lauderdale, went to Westminster Academy. So I'm like kind of in that like very much local community.
Mm-hmm.
Always loved politics. I was that weird kid in high school that was like,
weren't we all?
leading the teenage Republicans. It's so funny because people come to me and say, "Oh, Lauren, how'd you become conservative? How'd you get involved in politics? And they think I have this like really compelling story of like, well, I was a liberal and then I'm like, no, I was
Always
16 and I would drive home from school to watch Glenn Beck on CNN. Like before he was on Fox, I was watching him on CNN with like the chalkboard, and he's like crazy conspiracy theories. I'm like, yes, I believe all of it.
You're like, this is my jam.
I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I don't know how, but this is it. So always been involved in politics since when I was really young. Went off to college, political science major. Right out of college, got involved in campaigns and some political nonprofits.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Furman University in South Carolina. A lot of people think it's very conservative because it's in, southern state.
It's in Greenville.
Greenville,
It's
South
a very
Carolina.
conservative college in the same town.
Well, yes, Bob Jones is right next door.
Oh, that's right.
Let's just say Furman is not Bob Jones.
No.
Is it like the opposite?
It's a very liberal arts college, and it has a history of being a conservative and Christian university, but it left those roots.
There's
a
a lot of
ago.
colleges like that. I know in Ohio there's a lot that started out as like conservative Christian colleges.
I
and they're,
mean,
like,
let's be real. I mean,
super
Harvard
liberal.
started out as
you
like
can go to all
seminary.
The Ivies, all
Yeah.
the Ivies even.
Yeah.
That's like a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's a
Our
rabbit hole.
education system and what is the meaning and purpose of education. But no,
Nothing.
seems like it today.
I'm very anti-college.
No, I did not enjoy my college experience. I learned a lot, and I wouldn't change it only because of where I am now and looking back, seeing how it shaped me. But I was the lone conservative Christian student on campus speaking
Seriously.
out. There were others that had the same beliefs as me, but like
they wouldn't
totally
speak up.
silent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally silent. And I was a member of the Conservative Students Club on campus. And I remember at the time, Jesse Jackson was coming to speak to the campus, and he grew up in Greenville. So the story goes, and I'm sure it's true, he would have gone to Furman, but at the time it wasn't. It was segregated. So he sold peanuts for the Furman baseball games, but he couldn't actually go to school at Furman. And so obviously, history played out. We now have a college that accepts all people, as is across the United States. Totally different time frame. Furman decides they're gonna bring Jesse Jackson to campus and just like put him on a stage and just be like, this is a great activist who's a bridge builder between all these different groups and races and ethnicities.
The one that started race riots in
And
New York against the Jews. Yep, him.
Yes, and so
Was that Al Sharpton?
Might have been Al Sharpton.
Sorry, I think that was Al Sharpton. I retract that.
Jesse
Sorry.
Jackson has his own
Yeah,
story
has his
history.
own stuff. Yes.
So all that to say, they were creating this narrative of how he's just like the most wonderful person in the world. I'm like, if you just kind of Google him, you're going to see a very different picture. And so I brought it up to a few of my professors, and they're like, nah, it's fine. Like, this is great. Just let it go. And I was like, no. Like, at least as a conservative student organization, we should educate our peers on how the university is putting out this story that's very much not accurate to the truth. We don't have to do anything obnoxious. We don't have to protest. Let's just pass out information outside of the event. So we did that. Vice president of the university comes up, tries to like literally rip the pamphlets out of my hand and like starts to almost physically assault me. I knew that there was going to be some type of crazy response. So when we were planning like our group of 4 musketeers, I was like, hey, your job is stand across the street and just film me the whole time. And she's like, you have that big of an ego? I'm like, no, I just know something crazy is going to happen. So we got on tape this vice president of the university, like trying to physically pull the pamphlets out of my hand and like wrestling with me. Long story short, we exposed Jesse Jackson for who he truly is. University was not happy. That kind of kicked off like my conservative activism career.
You're like, let's go off to the races.
Yeah, and it got to the point, thankfully, this was like pretty close to the end of my college time at college, but it got to the point where like I couldn't walk through a building on campus or through like a department without professors like glaring at me or like professors talking badly about me in their classroom. Like it was a small enough campus where I was like, I was that girl.
Did it affect like your grades and stuff like that?
I think it did in a couple cases, but to be honest, I also was terrible at Spanish, and I think they wanted to get rid of me so bad that they actually gave me a better grade, so I would pass and get out of there.
Just leave.
But I tell that story because it was like a watershed moment for me where it was, okay, I know I believe what I believe, but do I believe it enough to speak out? And if I don't do it, no one else will. And my parents were very supportive if I wanted to pursue that path, but at the same time, they're like, you know, if you want to keep your head down, get A's, get a good job, make a lot of money, donate to conservative causes, like we're good with that route too. But the rabble-rouser in me was like, no, I really truly believe this stuff, and if not me, it's no one.
Right.
And so I'm going to step up and I'm going to become, you know, an activist in my community. And so from there, went on, like I said, to work for campaigns and some political nonprofits and done a lot of local stuff here in South Florida. But always really been interested in free speech, diversity of opinion, and being able to just have conversations with people without it being filled with hate and demonizing and name calling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
I caught a few of your stories right before the election. I think it's right before the election, where you were like going up to people on the Pompano Beach, like the pier and stuff, asking them like either who they were voting for or who they thought were going to win.
I always wanted to do that. We should do that. I want to do more of that.
I'll tell you what, you've got to really psych yourself up unless you're totally like just on camera, like love that kind of thing, because you're walking up to people who are sitting there feeding the pigeons. And you're like, hey, can I interview you? But we got some really good content, and it was so interesting. It was that day that I decided, like, okay, I feel good about this. I think Trump's going to win, because after talking to people, some of it on camera, some off, most people said they were voting for Trump. The majority of those people said they had not voted for him before.
Wow.
And they were very passionate about it. In most cases. And the few that were like, oh, I'm undecided, I'm like, who's your spouse voting for? And they'd say Trump. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're voting for Trump. Got it. But yeah, we did a couple of videos like that and put it on TikTok with really not a whole lot of following. It had thousands of views and just kind of fun. Talk to people and see what they're thinking. And everyone was nice. A few people didn't want to be on camera, but nobody was like
screaming and like gnashing of teeth.
The only crazy guy was pro-Trump and super passionate about like the WHO and like conspiracy theories and stuff. And I was like, love your passion. But yeah, no, it was a good time. It was fun.
Awesome. So what do you do now? What are you up to these days? Do you work like in campaigns? Are you going to plan for running for anything? What are you thinking?
No desire to run for anything. Much rather be behind the scenes. So I don't even know like how you put me on camera today. That's kind of manipulative. Just kidding. So I oversee.
We're holding her against her will, guys.
Yeah. Come help me. No, I oversee an organization called the Institute for Faith and Culture. It's a nonprofit organization born out of Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church in Fort Lauderdale. Basically, it's a worldview organization training people how to apply their faith to all aspects of life. So instead of just having like a Sunday morning faith, it's what do you do Monday through Saturday? How do you apply your faith to all life, whether that's work or family or education or the public square? So I still get to do a lot of like politics in that sense, but it's super meaningful. And I think it really is just helping people think through the mundane of normal life and filling it with purpose.
I love that. Very cool. Wow.
But yes, I still do some campaigns every once in a while.
What has been like if you worked on any campaigns you would want to like tell us about or talk about or like funny stories or anything?
Yeah, I mean I'm super proud of some of the work that I've been involved in. Chris Addy ran for Congress against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I did not work for his campaign, but I worked for the super PAC that was predominantly supporting him. We did some TV commercials, which was pretty neat.
Oh, cool. So fun.
Rarely do you have a conservative or Republican candidate in deep blue Broward County that has enough money to do actual like cable television commercials. And so super fortunate to be involved in that. And I mean, we spent a lot of money on commercials, TV, digital ads, the annoying text messages. That was me. I'm sorry. I think I spent like, don't go through the FEC report because I don't recall, but I mean like probably $30,000 worth of text messages. I mean, just like
That's a lot of text messages because text messages are 2 cents a piece.
it's granted big district, and I was can I say harassing? I was like harassing people to go vote.
Yes.
But
chasing people to go vote.
Yeah, but like to the point where they hated me so much.
Were you getting responses?
No, I wasn't looking at the responses.
Okay.
I didn't care. They could be like,
I love looking at responses.
No, well, if it's a small race, like a city commission race, I want to see the responses. But
that big of a race, yeah.
Did I do text messages in 22?
I don't think so.
I don't think I did. I think I only did like social media ads. It was a bare bones budget, man.
Oh, listen. Did I do text messages? I got this call. So I forget. Did I do text messages? I'm actually now wondering the same thing. I don't think I did text messages.
I don't think I did either.
But I did something where then some guy called me and like, I don't know how he got my number, and he started screaming at me and told me to take him off his list and and I was like, what? But I'm trying, I must have been emails, and like he got my phone number or something. Anyway, I'm like, 'cause now I remember him calling me, but I don't think I sent text messages. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
No, I just, that's one race recently, super proud of. I wish we could have pushed Crissetti over the line.
You and me both.
Excellent candidate, just a real good public servant, super qualified. And obviously, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is also just
psycho.
The worst.
She's terrible.
The worst.
She's the worst. Where's Nick when you need him? The worst.
So, yeah, that one was a tough loss.
Oh, and plus it was a long campaign, relatively speaking.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, he had a primary challenger who shall not be named, which was just ridiculous because he wasn't from the district, wasn't from here, ran as a Republican in another state, and then previous to that was
a
Democrat. Like just total carpetbagger. And I just don't, it's hard for me to respect that. I don't want to be like demeaning, but at the same time, you have someone who's a seated city commissioner with a long-standing history in South Florida, military service, FBI service, like just excellent public servant, and you got rando guy from another state shows up and goes, "Oh no, I'm the real MAGA candidate."
I saw him on Twitter.
Yeah,
I accidentally followed him because I didn't realize it was the same district.
Yeah,
until
you followed
told
him
me
before he even jumped into the race.
I think so. I can't remember how I started following him.
I think it was like the Jewish angle or something.
Maybe. Yeah, Jewish Republicans. I usually follow a lot of Jewish Republicans because for a long time there hasn't been that many, and so I think I started following them. And then when you told me, I was like, oh man.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I don't really like hating on anybody who's a registered Republican. I'm not the type of person who's like a big time rhino hunter or anything. I mean, certainly I'm more conservative than others, and I would prefer that they bend to my will versus moving to the mushy moderate middle. But at the end of the day, it's like, man, in South Florida, like we got to take what we can get.
We got to take what we can get.
And then hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire. Like people interpret that as, oh, like Lauren doesn't really care if there's an R behind her name. Like, no. But I get the game, I get the strategy. Like you've got to be elected to then govern and lead. So I didn't, I don't want to hate on anybody, but it was like, don't move here and challenge somebody who like could have saved a lot of money in a primary and put that towards winning.
Yeah,
that's because that's what we do.
Yeah, we make poor choices here, right?
Yeah. Republicans are so good at it. We're so good at it. Well, I think a lot of it is sabotage. I think a lot of the candidates that come in, I think like when we look at what happened in Palm Beach County, we had a state attorney race where we had a really, really great conservative candidate. Sam Stern was here on our podcast. He was very, very good, running a really clean, really good race.
Had good donors backing him. He had like real money.
A massive amount of money.
Yeah, like people did not want to see the like quote unquote incumbent, like she came up through that office.
She came up through the office because it was an open seat. It's the first time the seat's been open in almost 20 years. And then a third party dude jumped in the race, and he only would go after Sam. So in any public setting or any time he had a speech, I saw him one time at a campaign event or a candidate forum thing. He had his 2 minutes. He spent the entire 2 minutes trash talking Sam.
And you go, you're only attacking one.
Who's paying you?
And he pulled just enough votes away from Sam for the other woman to win.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy how that happens, and we get these psychopaths in office now.
Well, why don't we find a way to do that? Why don't the
because we're not that Well, that's a great question. Sophisticated.
Sometimes it feels that way.
No, sophisticated. I was going to say sneaky. And like, we're not that, like, we don't think, because we're not devious people. We're not desiring power at all costs, where they will do anything to have power. And we want power in order to make the world better, not bend people the way that we want, not to control everything. But they want power more than they want to have good morals or good standards or, you know, create a great thing. And so therefore, they will do anything. And we don't think like that because that's just not our nature.
Yeah, well, I think that we need to wake up to that, though.
I agree.
I definitely don't think that you should do things that are illegal or immoral.
No.
But I do think you should be ready to play ball.
We need to play.
And, like, I was watching something on Netflix last night, and one of the characters in the show said something like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But it was like, I was just like, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we should cheat, but like, yeah, if you're not like in it and you're like ready to play,
let's play let's play strategic.
And so for me, like, I've got like 3 copies of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals on my bookshelf. And if you know of the book, it's dedicated to like the devil or Lucifer. And people are like, how do you have a book in your home dedicated to the devil? And I'm like, well, first of all, one, I don't feel like because like it's written dedication is on the book that all of a sudden I'm inviting like demons into my home. All right, like that's crazy. 2, we need to know exactly what they believe, why they believe it, so we can fight it. And 3, some of that is really good political strategy, and we should read it and figure out how to implement it better. Like we have tools at our disposal to fight for what's good, true, and beautiful. Let's do it. I don't understand why it's like, oh, I care about things and I'm a nice person, so I'm gonna go run and get totally steamrolled.
Yeah.
Like that's really nice, but like that's not even a just cause at that point. That's just pathetic. Like,
yeah,
and I think it's like we as people who understand this and have a little bit of like a background in how this works need to come alongside these folks and say, great, you want to fight? Like, here's the strategic way to do it. Yeah. Here's how you actually make a difference. Here's how you make inroads. Not to say we're going to win every time, because clearly, you know, we lose enough races in South Florida. But you look at candidates like John Brody in Coconut Creek. Excellent candidate, worked super hard, was super strategic. Also had that thing where 2 opponents splitting the vote, he sneaks in. But that was like a perfectly orchestrated race.
Yeah. I know. I love when he told me that story. I was like, "That can you write a book?"
Oh, I'm like injected into my veins.
Yeah, can you write that playbook for us, please?
Yeah.
Well, we get people who want to have their glory hogs, and they're like, "I'm running for Congress." Well, what have you ever done? Have you been in city council? Have you run for city council? Have you ever run a race before? Have you sat on a board or
Have
you sat on a board?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I was like, I'm running for city council, but I started with city council. I did not start with Congress. I had someone ask me during that race, they were like, you should run, because Ted Deutsch was the representative at the time. They're like, you should run against Ted Deutsch. And I was like, no. No. Why would I do that? That sounds terrible. That sounds like a terrible idea. I don't have an ego that big. I literally was like, no, my ego is not that big. Like, no,
I've had people come to me and so seriously say, I think I'm gonna run for Congress, and I, without like a flash of a second of hesitation, go, oh, you have $7 million? And they look at me like, what? I go, yeah. Well, if you're gonna run TV ads, you need about $7 million. So get back to me when you got some of that. And they're like, oh, well, maybe I won't run for Congress. Something else I can run for?
Yes, school board.
Yeah. I'm like, well, can you raise like $50,000? Oh, that's a lot of money to you too? Well, I don't know.
Yep.
Like, welcome to the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't get it in candidates. I have some fundraising. Talk about that later.
It's tough.
They don't understand. There's not like, they don't understand, and you can tell them until you're blue in the face and until they live it. And even then, I'm not sure that people realize what went wrong when they lose.
I just don't understand, you know, perennial candidates that just run and run and run.
Do they make money?
I mean, I have to believe they're supporting themselves somehow.
I don't understand. Why? Isn't that a glutton for punishment? It's like, are they just like addicted to the high?
You know, I think there's different types of people that continually run and lose. I think there's the like truly like don't care if they lose because the next time they're gonna win. Like there's that candidate.
Eternal optimist.
Yeah. Then there's the ones that like they just love the attention. They don't care if they're elected or not. Like they just love being a candidate.
Carrie Lake.
I don't know what category she fits into. Then there's the candidates that like they are absolutely making money off of it somehow, whether they're like, every meal that they eat is like expensed by the campaign, or like they're paying their kids. We all know the candidates that do that type of thing. And then I think there's the candidates that truly, like, I don't know how to say it politely, but their social receptors are broken. like they can't go into a social scenario and like have a normal interaction because they just are unaware. And you're like, you've lost 7 races now and you still think that like we should go, oh, you're running for whatever position? Oh my goodness. And they like actually.
And here's some money.
Yeah, and they think that like I'm gonna write them a maxed out check, and I'm like, no, I never wrote you a check, and I never will, and you're gonna run 7 more times, and we all know you're gonna lose, but they don't even feel that. They don't.
Mm-mm.
Social receptors.
The data
are broken.
doesn't like. I think people can't wrap their head around that. Like, you can data plan things out. You can say, okay, here's where you need to gain votes. Here's what you can try to do to get people to vote for you. Here's what you can do. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with people who will go into a voting booth and fill out the name of whoever they want for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And there's no way we can absolutely know what that is.
Yeah.
Unless we spend a lot of money on all that. And there's absolutely no way we can guarantee an outcome by doing X, Y, and Z. Like, you cannot do that. You are dealing with people. So we can data map this out and we can talk through all these things with you. But if you don't understand as a candidate that you are dealing with people who are,
total wild card.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly the wild card is the people, which is ultimately the decision-making process, the decision of whether you win or lose. And they don't get it.
Yeah, I had
like you do.
I had a family friend who is in business, and he once told me, "Yeah, my job would be great if I didn't have clients and employees." Yeah, it's like every human aspect of it, because it's just that's where all the crazy comes in.
Yeah, 100%.
But
someone with almost 100 employees under her.
Yeah, you know.
I tell some of my entrepreneur friends, reason number 1,099, not to have employees.
Oh my God.
It's like you love people. And I'm so guilty of this. I love the concept of people, but then I actually meet people, and I'm like, oh, do I really actually love people? I feel
like Nick would identify a lot with that. He's always like, I don't like people.
Like that's just, I guess, my introvertness and my like broken human nature. But I'm like, yeah, no, I care about people. Like as a Christian, like I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself. And then you actually meet the person, you're like, oh, this is hard. Like I actually have to die to self, and like this is not an easy task.
I don't think it was supposed to be easy.
Yeah. And that's politics. So like I love that you brought up you can do all these things and like make the plan, and it still might not work out. So I'm at a point where people might want to hire me to run their campaign or consult on their campaign, and I'm like, oh no, like as much as you're interviewing me, I'm interviewing you.
That's something I've had to learn.
Like
right at me.
I'm not gonna beg for a job that's gonna be miserable.
It's gonna make you want to cry and wish you quit at the end of it.
Oh yeah. And so I tell people all the time, I'm like, I can't guarantee that you're gonna win. I can guarantee that you will not be embarrassing, and you'll run a professional campaign, and you'll use your money wisely. But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's going to tell you like, oh, hire me and you'll win, they're a liar.
Mm-hmm.
So you get what you get, and
you don't get upset.
Yeah. And
I tell my children.
Honestly, that's kind of gone well for me in the sense that like when candidates run a great race and they still lose, they're like, all right, like this was the agreement, and I'm proud of the race I ran.
Yeah.
It's a textbook, like beautiful race.
Mm-hmm.
My, all the blocking and tackling was great. It just didn't work out. The numbers weren't there. Like the voter sentiment wasn't there, whatever. But I do think like we've got to start being more strategic.
I agree.
We really do. It's painful sometimes.
It's true. Well, I think there's like a lack of I don't know. I don't know how if I should say this on the air.
I've already basically said enough to get myself fired. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like that we have in South Florida. I feel like there's a vacuum of strategic planning organizations. So, like, I don't know what exists in other places, but Republicans are more successful in other places. And I don't know if that's just by demographics, they have more Republican voters, but we have a lot of Republican voters actually here.
By sheer numbers, absolutely.
By sheer numbers. And I just think there's a serious lack. I think I refer to, like, our Tri-County area as, like, the redheaded stepchild of the Republican Party, because for a very long time we don't get the money. We don't get they gerrymander the districts. Like, is that what you mentioned? Somebody mentioned they gerrymander even the Republicans will gerrymander the districts to try to, like, that we get, like, the short end of the stick.
Yeah, the Steve Abrams was talking about.
Steve Abrams was talking about it.
He was going to run. For a state house, and they did redistricting, and it became like
there's no way he could win. He had a chance to win.
Sure.
And then they redistricted. And took it out from under him, basically. And so he said But yeah, I
think that was the first time he was going to run, and then the second time he was going to run, Connie Mack Jr. jumped in the race at the last minute.
Okay,
that was it. So yeah, and so, like, he said that basically when Tallahassee they carve everything, and then they get to us, and they're like, well, we have so many Democrats here, so we'll whatever. They can't win down there anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's to a certain extent. Sometimes it's considered as like a throwaway.
Yeah,
for sure. But it's super disappointing because
right.
if you look at the Tri-County area,
that's what I'm saying.
We make up 25% of the entire state.
Yeah.
As far as like voting population. And we've got 67 counties in Florida. 68, 67?
67.
Yeah. And 3 counties make up 25%.
It's huge.
And the other thing is, I get that we aren't going to have like a local bench necessarily, but by the sheer numbers, even though we don't have the percentage to have a red county.
We could.
If Broward, Palm Beach, Miami doesn't turn out the vote of the sheer numbers, like your statewide candidate is not going to win.
Yeah.
And I do think some candidates and some people within the party have started to take notice. Even like when DeSantis chose Jeanette Nunez as his running mate, that was like I do need the Miami vote. I do need the Cuban American vote. I think there's been a shift somewhat with the Florida GOP.
Yeah,
more
I think they're
to South
finally
Florida.
starting to. I think it's just in the last couple of years, but even still, like, yeah.
But RNC doesn't seem to put much attention in South Florida. I think a little bit in Miami-Dade. But I had a couple conversations with the RNC real early on, like late 2022, after the midterms, early 2023. And it was about how do we take the Miami effect for 2022 and bring that up into the south part of Broward County, same Hispanic demographic. And there was a little bit of interest, but it just wasn't there to like get the attention and any funding. And my pitch to them was like, hey, $250,000, like you could radically change South Florida. But I think that their mindset was, okay, 2024 presidential election, Florida will absolutely go for Trump anyway.
Doesn't matter.
And so
they don't care about the statewide stuff.
We have to start thinking much more long term, and not just what's our next election cycle, what's 8 months from now, a year from now.
And we need to start pinpointing our candidates of who are the bench, who are going to be run for city council.
Oh, absolutely.
Who are going to run for and go through the process, because that's what it doesn't matter how down the Democrats are. That's still what they do. We have a city councilwoman again, going back to my city in Boca, there's the 5, there's the mayor and the 4 city council members. So a couple, it's nonpartisan. So I definitely know one is an NPA, no, couple are Republican, one's a Democrat. So you got to make sure, but the Democrat has already already declared that she's running for state Senate. She's ready to go.
Well, and so this may be an unpopular opinion, but I think the reason Democrats can do that well is because they have they rule with an iron fist.
Yeah.
They have a very strong apparatus that strong arms people into like, this is where you're going to run. You're not going to run. This is who comes next.
Yeah.
We're going to give you money. This guy's going to be blackballed. And as Republicans, especially as like, true pro-democracy, like
we're like, anybody can run.
And we're like, we want people to be involved at the local level. We the locals, right? But at the same time, when you do that, you have the people we were talking about earlier that are like, oh, they're so well intentioned.
I'm running for Congress.
But they're running for Congress, and they literally have no skill set.
And they can't be convinced.
I'm gonna run against my cousin.
Yes.
There's that.
Yeah, that's all. That was my commission district, by the way, my city commission district. So it was very interesting to watch that.
Oh, would you like to tell us? Tell us more. Tell us more.
You know, I don't really have any juicy information other than I actually like some of the development going on in Pompano. A lot of people don't like it, and I keep saying like my property value is gonna go up, so I'm not upset. And my neighbor's like, "You want to wait in traffic to go to Publix?" And I'm like, yeah, if my condo's worth like another $200,000, I think I will.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, like the main thing causing traffic for you getting to Publix is the freaking drawbridge.
Yeah. Oh, it's the bridge,
which has always been there.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so more people are gonna wait on the bridge. Like it's still, once the light changes green, like we're flying over that thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a really interesting race, but I really don't have a whole lot to comment on it. For someone as involved in politics as I am, I'm not super involved in my city's politics other than Commissioner McGee's a friend. And anytime that she needed something, she knew she could call me. I think she did a great job for us. I was a little disappointed with some of the other outcomes in Pompano races, but like I said, it's interesting in Pompano specifically, but a lot of local races. It's not a partisan thing. It's very much like pro-development, anti-development. Yep. Fort Lauderdale's that way, although Fort Lauderdale also brings in like a lot of social issues because they always want to do these resolutions and stuff, and I'm like proclamations and all that. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, that's part of your history.
Yeah. Oh, so I've done a whole lot of things in the last 10 years. I don't know. Politics is kind of interesting where because campaign cycles are like so short, you have like a really long resume, and so you do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. But yeah, I was the chief of staff for the vice mayor of Fort Lauderdale.
Oh wow!
Through COVID. So it was everything from being a part of setting up vaccine sites, which was just a lot of logistics and moving parts, to different like sewer issues and water treatment plant and development issues, to people calling the office and saying like, my trash wasn't picked up on time and I'm really angry. And I'm thinking like, ma'am, I don't care that your trash wasn't picked up on time, which obviously is not the right response to a public servant. No. So I never said that, but that's what I was thinking on the inside, and that's when that was
my inner voice.
Yes, and that's when I realized like this is probably not the forever job for me, and so I got
good self-awareness.
Got the office in order and transitioned back into politics and my current job, running basically a think tank, a worldview organization. But yeah, I did all that. It was a really, really interesting experience. She was the only Republican on the commission, all nonpartisan, but everybody knew everybody's politics.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows everyone's politics, even in nonpartisan.
Well, especially because Fort Lauderdale brings the social issues in.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we had like right after January 6th, 2021, the only January 6th
that anybody ever cares about, ever.
At the time, it was Steve Glassman was the vice mayor, I think, and he tried to bring forward a proclamation that was like literally said we have to deprogram people. And I was just like, you've gotta be kidding me. So I'm like marking up like the whole proclamation, and I give it to the commissioner, and I'm like, all right, here's like I prepped your notes, and she was awesome. I mean, she was like, she handled it so well, so firm, so direct, but also like just so personable and like easygoing about it. And so that was a lot of fun, but I think he got real upset real quick because he realized like I was the one like behind the scenes like feeding the commissioner comments, not putting words in her mouth. She was in charge and everything, but like as a staffer, that's what you do. You like prep your boss. And he went on like a tear to try to get me fired. He was like not happy. So Steve Glassman, if you're watching, like, what's up, buddy? He's actually super nice. He just we don't agree on much. But yeah, so city commission at Fort Lauderdale is quite something.
I mean, that's the city in Broward. So it's like, it steers the whole,
Yeah, and it's been through a lot. I mean, you pick a candidate or a commissioner or a city manager or a city attorney or anybody like who's been in that realm for 10, 15 past years. there's drama there. Like,
oh yeah,
like the John Herbst story is crazy.
I love it. I love it.
And he's great. I love John Herbst. He's a great guy. We talk about like a guy that just kind of punches back and goes like, I'm not going to take this. And you look at like even Barbara Stern running for mayor and like her role with
name.
FOP.
Yeah.
You probably know her mom, Judy Stern.
Yes,
yeah.
that's why. Okay. But no, I think I remember hearing Barbara Stern with Jude, like the names linked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
like we've talked about this.
So Barbara is she ran. I want to say she ran for state house against George Moritas. Like
Yeah,
like,
I
a
believe
long
she
time
did
ago.
as well. Yeah.
And was a registered Republican, and then went over to I shouldn't talk about it because I don't know the facts specifically, but NPA I think, maybe Democrat, moved back to Republican, and she's an attorney or was attorney for the FOP. And I mean she's a feisty attorney. I really respect her a whole lot. And so she, in this last election cycle, ran against Dean Trantalis.
And a few other people, but
And a few other people. That was the real race. That was the real race.
yes, it was.
And so that was very interesting to watch. And
Who won?
Dean.
Trantalis.
Dean Trantalis, who, by the way, gives excellent Christmas presents. I remember when I was working at the commission, he got all the aides Christmas presents, and he got me like a purse and something else, and I was like, his taste is impeccable. So, yeah. So, anyways, yeah, if you work at the commission, make sure Dean is the mayor, and you'll get good Christmas presents. If you learn nothing else on this show. So yeah, I did a stint as someone in city government, and you know, I watched Parks and Rec after working in city government, and every time I was just like, whoa.
You're like, did they follow me around?
Yeah, I was like, I saw that. Oh no, that didn't happen.
Well, it's funny. Like I binge watched it in the spring, and I was pretty fresh commissioner at that time. But you know, they don't have any sunshine.
No.
The commissioners kept talking to each other about, you know, trading favors.
Do you think, okay, so real quick on sunshine, do you think that sunshine should be applied to state reps as well? Or if not applied to state reps, should it be loosened for the rest of elected officials? / appointed officials.
I have a tough time with this because on the one hand, I see the intent of sunshine, but I also think that it makes it so restrictive. It's very difficult just to get work done. So in all of my spare time, I was on my condo board, which is like I'm the most glutton for punishment.
Real politics.
Oh my gosh.
But even an HOA or a condo board is governed by sunshine law. So I couldn't even call my neighbor and be like, "Hey, let's talk about this." Like everything had to be at the
meetings.
at the condo board meeting, and residents would sit there and they'd be like, "Why didn't you talk about this ahead of time? You guys don't know what you're doing. You're not." And I'm like, "Ma'am, like this is literally our meeting to talk about this. Like you have to sit there and watch it because we're doing the business now." So as someone who was under sunshine law in a very limited capacity, obviously I guess there is fraud with condos and whatnot, but it's far and few between. It was very frustrating to work under. Flip side, okay, we know how lobbyists work. We know like how corrupt government can be, whether it's city or Tallahassee or up in DC. But I think having a mechanism, and I just haven't thought through this a lot, but having a mechanism where elected officials can have discussions, can work together, can like hash things out without it being a situation where there's like corruption, trading, behind the scenes deals. But I don't know what that looks like because honestly, people who want to cheat are just going to have the conversation anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Like
sunshine only holds people who are...
it's kind of like gun laws, right? Or like
I don't know. In Palm
else.
Beach County, they follow them very, 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 very strictly because otherwise they do get arrested.
Good. I mean, I think
what was it? Year was it?
Early 2000s?
Early 2000s. There was a sweep. 4 county commissioners arrested.
Well, you know what I believe? I think that you should follow the law or you should be arrested, and I don't care what the law is because I just think laws should be enforced. Is that okay to say?
I mean, look, I am a rule follower, so I believe that as well. But one thing I learned during COVID was that laws also have to make sense.
Oh, most don't.
So, right. So there has to be logic and reason for the law. Otherwise it's stupid.
Well, you know how most laws are created is one person does one dumb thing.
Stupid thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then it's like blanket for everybody.
Right. And that's why sometimes, so I'm like, okay, speed limits. Speed limits do make sense. So I will follow speed limits-ish. Sort of.
No, I get that.
But like I said, during COVID, and those weren't laws, those were rules. But like everyone's like, oh, you got to follow the rules, you got to follow the ordinances, you have to follow the. I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It does. I'm not going to follow this because this is stupid. So I'm not going to follow it. But so that's that's something I learned because I've always been pretty much very much a by the book rule follower, like structure. Like this is what they say. This is what I'm going to do.
So what does it say about me that I think rules are made to be broken, but I equally want police to enforce laws?
I don't know because I feel that I kind of feel the same way now. I don't know.
Come after me if you can get me, but I want you to. Like, it's bizarre.
I don't know. I don't have enough degrees to help you figure out that one.
We said this was going to be a counseling session,
We did
right?
say that.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. I don't think we have the right things in our cups for that. Because my thing is with Sunshine is the people who wrote Sunshine and imposed it didn't obviously do it on themselves because why would they?
Sure.
So that is the thing that bugs me the most is the fact that they are not under Sunshine and they can go behind closed doors and they make the deals and the wheels and the deals that affect us the most because they have the most power in the state.
Yeah.
And because the cities and the counties, they can make ordinances, not laws. So they are the ones who make laws and they get to go and sit in a room and make all their laws and then come out and sign them. But I can't talk to like the Solid Waste Authority board member next to me about whether or not we should increase how much by $1 or by $1.50 like offline.
Yeah.
And so that to me blows my mind. The fact that they can create laws that directly impact our lives behind closed doors. And we can't even, like you said, you can't even call your neighbor to discuss like stuff on the, stuff in your condo association. So that's my issue. I like to see fair and equitable application of the law more than I'd like to see the law being followed.
Yeah.
That's my bigger thing.
I think that's fair.
So that's what my view on. I think so. Legislatures either need to apply the Sunshine Law to themselves or they need to figure out a little bit of a loosening of the reins for the rest of us and make it even across the board for all lawmakers and elected officials in the state of Florida. That's my opinion.
Maybe they could live under it for like a year and see how frustrating it is.
Yeah.
And then they'd go like, oh, well, I know the solution because they're also the ones that are like actually having to have those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'd actually know the pain points.
Right,
and
exactly.
come up with a solution versus, us pontificating going like, well,
exactly.
when I was trying to fix my elevator in my condo.
I couldn't call anybody
Not
to
a-
discuss it.
Had to wait till the meeting that was publicly noticed 48 hours in advance. Crazy.
Do they record those meetings?
Yeah, they were on Zoom and please don't look them up.
No, I won't. I was just curious because I know like when it's under Sunshine, they have to be publicly noticed and then accessible to the public.
Yeah.
Is it a like specific type of condo or homeowners association that are under Sunshine?
That's a good question.
There's a Florida statute. It's 718, and it applies to HOAs and condos. I don't know if it's a certain amount of units or not.
Okay.
Mine's like nearly 300 units.
Yeah.
It's a big tower, but
How dare you living in one of those giant towers that nobody likes? I'm just kidding.
Well, I'll tell you what. All my neighbors hate development and don't want their view to be blocked. So I got the pulse on my neighbors. I'm
just thinking like my parents' place, down in the Keys. It's like 12 homes.
Oh, it's like a co-op or whatever.
It's a homeowner. They have a homeowners association.
So
and they have a board.
So an HOA is different than a civic association. I learned.
I know. I was actually my first foray into politics. I was on the board of my civic association in Tarpon River in Fort Lauderdale.
Civic association is like a volunteer HOA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have a lot of those in Boca because we don't really have a lot of HOAs.
There's a lot in Fort Lauderdale, same thing.
Because we don't, Boca doesn't have a ton
of HOAs. In Fort
of
Lauderdale, you actually can't have an HOA. It has to be a civic association, which really, even though it's voluntary, it also strips a lot of the like muscle and power behind the group. So I think cities that don't want to have like HOAs bullying them go, oh, you can have a civic association.
Well, listen, I don't like HOAs at all, period. Never.
I like the fact that I could be, as a resident, I could be a member of the civic association for like literally $10 a year. I didn't have to pay HOA fees.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different thing. That's a fiscal perspective on it. No, I mean, I was literally president of the condo board while flying my Trump flag on the balcony and like having the management company write me warnings. And I'm like, as my employee, I want you to know I love that you're writing me this letter and you're being fair and equitable, but I also want you to know I'm not taking the flag down. So that's going to be awkward. But I want you to do the right thing. You can find me. It's fine.
So this is an example of you breaking the rules, but
while
you want
wanting
them.
it enforced. Yes. I was like,
Wow.
I will take the consequences, but I just want you to know it's not coming down. I don't want you to feel guilty about doing your job. I really appreciate it. They're like, what do we do with this woman? Yeah.
Do we have any comments or questions?
No, it's a quiet night in the chat.
Guys,
Wait,
come
Steve
on.
Glassman didn't say hello.
I know Diana Taub, she messaged me earlier, and she's like, you're having Captain Cooley on.
So, okay, my Instagram handle is Captain Cooley, and I made it up when I was like 20 years old.
Oh, it's like your aim.
Yeah, and I regret it, but at this point, it's like you can't change it.
No.
And I was at Mar-a-Lago earlier this week with Carol Swain, who's become a good friend, and she asked me if she could post a photo of us. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. She's like, what's your social media handles? And I was like, oh, well, Twitter, it's my name, whatever. Instagram, it's Captain_Cooley. She texted me back. She's like, I would have never guessed that. I'm so embarrassed. Like, this woman is like a legend in conservative politics and like happens to somehow be my friend. And I'm like, yeah, my Instagram is this really embarrassing thing. But yeah, so Captain Cooley.
Captain Cooley. Okay, so when you went to Mar-a-Lago, how did you get on? Because we drove by there, and obviously everything is blocked off. So which entrance did you go into? Just curious.
I have not figured out the security protocols for Mar-a-Lago.
No, they're different every time
I've
for
been
anything you go
a handful of
to.
times, and yeah, it's always different. So this last time, it was you had to park at the Hilton Airport.
Okay.
And then they shuttled you on.
I did that one time.
And it was so funny because they're like, they'll text you the QR code, and they're going to give you the ID and all that stuff. I mean,
stressful.
I think this is like public knowledge. I don't know. And they checked our ID like 4 times, and you're on this shuttle, and they actually turn the shuttle off, and like the engine goes off, and then the dogs sniff it and everything. And they like check underneath for bombs and stuff. That's why they turned
because I remember sitting on the
van
shuttle
off,
and
yeah.
it was hot, and we were like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was dogs.
And they're totally serious about it because I hosted
As they should be.
As they should be,
without
100%.
question. Yeah. And I actually think they do a great job on like the customer service retail side of things, like getting people in there when you consider how much security there is. But I host an event in October, a couple weeks before the election at Mar-a-Lago, and so I was like bringing stuff onto the property. And one of my coworkers, who is like worked in the Trump admin, clearly like can pass security clearance stuff, couldn't get his car on the property because the dog like sniffed something that wasn't there, I guess. I don't know. And so they're like taking his bumper off his car, like taking the car apart. And finally he's like, can you put my car back together and I'll just park like a mile away and Uber onto the property? And they were like, yeah, you're gonna have to do that. So
wow,
I kept telling him, I'm like, what did you do, man? Like what was in your car? Did you have some drugs in there or something?
Like what? Like gunpowder residue probably.
And,
arranged
I mean,
or something.
like, this is like a straight-laced guy. No question there was nothing wrong with the car, but hilarious. And so, yeah, every time it's different.
Yeah. When we took the kids, let's see, was it last week, a couple weeks ago, we just wanted to go for like a drive and get out. And so we were like, let's just drive up A1A. And so we stopped a bunch of places and drove up to A1A and then like just to see kind of where we could go. And because we've driven past there multiple times, I like to take them to the Flagler Museum, and we do a bunch of stuff in Palm Beach. And yeah, you could only make the left. And so we pulled up there, and so we were like looking at the property, and we could see the dogs, the
robot dog?
Yeah, the robo dogs. Thank you. Yeah. And the kids were like, wow, it's so cool. It was really cool to see them, and like everyone's out there and everyone's just like smiling, and it's just like such a crazy experience.
I have still never been up there.
Really?
I mean, I've been by there. I've been on the island. I've just never been to Mar-a-Lago.
We got to get you there.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal property.
It's so
I mean,
pretty.
I figure I'll get there at some point. I'm not like I'm not.
Lincoln Day dinner's coming.
We'll see if Jessica wins her election.
Yeah, Jessica wins.
We may be guests of the vice chair.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the chair, because the chair and I are like this.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
The
Great.
chair was the sponsor
He was
of
an
the show
original
for the
sponsor.
first 6 months.
Yeah. If
All
it weren't for him, we wouldn't have
Shout
got
out
it
to
off the
Al.
ground. Shout out to Al. If you need, this is going to be a free plug, because if it
Yes.
weren't for him, we wouldn't have got it off the ground. If you need any private security, private
Training.
gun training or private investigation, call Al.
R30 agency.
Our 30 agency. He's
.com.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
love it.
He's great. Shoot, I had another question.
Can I tell you my
Yeah,
coolest
absolutely.
Secret Service story?
Yes, please do.
So when Trump was running for office, before he became president, The campaign was like just kind of thrown together because all the real political operatives were working for like Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz and all those guys. And I fell into helping the Trump campaign in South Florida for a rally at what then was called the BB&T Center. I don't know. They changed the name all the time. So the security team, not Secret Service, Trump's not elected yet, comes to me and says, hey, we need to do a walkthrough, I'm answering questions. They said, how many mags do you want? I literally don't even know what that means. I'm like, how many what? And I'm 2016, so I'm 2 years out of college. Like, I'm young. I have no qualifications to be answering any of these questions. I'm like, how many what? They go, mags, magnometers. I'm like, uh-huh. And they go, like at TSA, you walk through the thing and it like goes off. There's metal. I go, oh, one per door? Like, I had no idea what I'm talking about. And they go, okay. Like, and took my word for it. I'm like, all right, one per door. So that's like pre-elected. And then Trump comes back to do a rally with Governor DeSantis in 2018. It was like right before Thanksgiving. I think it was 2018. And I was the executive director of the party at that time. We had done a like VIP fundraiser after the fact across the street at Sawgrass. I am the last person there, like hauling boxes. When you're like, you're the everything. You do like the from the top planning down to like the grunt work.
Yep.
So it's
been there, done that. Still do it
like
all the time.
2 a.m. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like that's true leadership. 2 a.m. I'm like walking back from Sawgrass to find wherever I parked my car over at the arena, and there's literally men coming out of like the little water ponds that are like swampy.
The retention ponds?
And they're in like swamp monster costumes with machine guns around their like strapped on.
Seals?
Yeah. And I was like, no way. Like, and I just looked at them like, I'm going to my car. Like I'm not here to do anything. I've been here all day. And I was like, no one's going to believe this. Like, this is so cool. So when we see like the dogs running, Robo Dog running around Mar-a-Lago, like you have no idea.
That's crazy.
What else is there that you definitely have no idea about?
Oh man, that's so cool.
You didn't just show up for the photo ops?
No, some people work hard. Some people don't just show up for the photo op, post it, and go, look at all the things that I've done.
I heard a story about that today. I had lunch with Lisa Rask.
Shout out to Lisa. She's
Shout out
awesome.
Lisa. I actually, because Andre, I'm going to say it wrong. Andrea was coming on tonight. But I had the thought flip through my mind. I was like, I should see if Lisa wants to come on and hang out with us.
We almost had a surprise.
Yeah, we were gonna have a surprise
second guest tonight, and then
didn't work out.
She
kind of felt under the weather. So
Andrea
was going to be with us tonight.
Tell us all the war stories from her recent
stories from early voting.
Stories from early voting. Oh my gosh.
So we hope you feel better soon, Andrea.
Feel better soon. Shout out to Lisa Rask. She was just telling me something like almost verbatim what you just said today.
Well, I think Abby and I are thinking the same person, but that really is like a stereotype of people in politics.
Yeah, it really is.
No, that's very true.
It's like, they have a photo with every single like Fox News celebrity or like the My Pillow guy or whatever, and you're like, oh, so your photo with them really like knocked a lot of doors, didn't it?
Yeah. It's one of my biggest beefs. It's my biggest beef with the party, especially in Palm Beach County, because we're here in Mar-a-Lago and everyone wants to show up to go see,
sorry, can't make it to Locals for Liberty tonight.
Nope.
Club 47
Sorry,
meeting.
don't want to join the REC, but there's 1,000 people at the Club 47 meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, and then listen, I don't want to, come down. I know that there were a lot of people from Club 47 who did volunteer to sit at early voting sites. Yeah. So I don't want to, paint everybody with the bad brush in any way whatsoever. But that being said, when you're having these giant events and all of this big draw and you have Trump up there with 3,000 people at the arena, maybe support a local candidate and have one of the local candidates give a 2-minute speech so that people know that, oh, this is someone I should also vote for.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I actually got in a little bit of trouble during my tenure as executive director for the Broward GOP because larger candidates would drop in and I would almost fight with campaign staff of, what do you mean we can't put our candidate for Congress on stage for 2 minutes? What do you mean we can't have the chairman of the party read 15 people who are on our red card and just acknowledge them from the crowd? What do you mean? Why are you here then?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just for you. And I had to take a step back because it was like, all right, we don't want to be disrespectful to our like chief candidate that's running. And this was not one specific campaign.
No,
I mean, this is
how this works.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
It's an attitude that the Republican Party has. It's an attitude that a lot of people have, but it's specifically the Republican Party, because we do not think in the way that the Democrats do, where you kind of mentioned earlier, where they're like, this is how we have to do things. They look at everything from the ground up, the city council, the school board. We have to win these races. Our people need to turn out to vote for these races. And whether those people who turn out to vote for those races know what they're doing or not, they know that they're going out to go do that. And they are promoted from the party, those races, those seats, those positions. And so therefore they know how to get involved with them. And we're like, vote for president and maybe your congressman. That's it. Nobody knows. I get like, you know, that's one reason we have this podcast, is to try to bring that to people, into people's living rooms, like the importance of local politics and how important it is to know who your city council people are, or know who your school board members are, to know who your state reps are, because otherwise that's how we end up with and to vet the candidates, because then that's how we end up with really, really bad Republicans.
Well, that's what I was going to say in response. Is like, on the flip side, then you have the person who's run for office 7 times, still keeps losing, and is like actually like a crazy, horrible human being or whatever. Like, I'm not whoever
that applies to.
Whoever's some skeleton in their closet, and you're putting like the main ticket candidate up on stage right after them. Like, that doesn't work either.
No.
So I think that, like, in order to get some of that to happen, you really do have to have that like stronger organization from a higher level of politic.
Do you think that organization needs to come from like the state party?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have spent a lot of time in the REC. I've been a member of the Broward REC since 2014. As soon as I moved back from college, I joined. I'm a member to this day. And I have talked to a lot of other REC leaders throughout the state, and also in other states even. And they have different models in different states, but it's all county party. And I think that, as important as it is to have a grassroots effort and people involved, what happens is a lot of times, like, the people that rise up for very local leadership have no idea what they're doing.
That's correct.
And then the state party doesn't educate or train or empower them or help the local group make wiser decisions in the future. And I think it really is pretty detrimental.
Yeah.
And so, like, we've seen in Broward County what an excellent party leader can do. We've seen what a very poor party leader can do. And I'm grateful that I don't think that the damage is as bad as the successful impact can be. So, like, if you have just a chair that doesn't know what they're doing, it's super unfortunate. I think it can hurt some local candidates. I don't think it's going to be like abysmal and turn the county blue forever kind of thing. If you have a really strong functioning county party, you can move the needle significantly. And so, I would love to see the Florida GOP take a stronger initiative in building out the county parties. I think that they've started to do that much better than, say, like 6-8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't want to be critical of the state party whatsoever. But I do think that, like, it's just the nature of it, right? Like, you ask people who are lay people, they don't have a political science degree, they haven't worked on a campaign before, they're going to work, they're taking care of their kids, and they've got a couple hours a month to give to you. You're going to get that level of education when it comes to, like, politics and campaigning. And so then the few people that maybe are, like, retired and have all the free time and somehow get, like, a movement behind them, they're going to take it and run with it. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes that's not so good. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I like that take. We got no comments or questions?
No.
Jeez.
No.
What's up? You guys, like, getting ready for the holidays or something? I don't know. I have a funny story real quick. Let me go back to politics. I fell ice skating this week. So I don't know if anybody can see, but I can't pick up my water bottle with one hand because I landed. Like, I think I was reaching out for the wall because I just went down like a tree.
Oh, no.
And so I, like, bruised ribs, and I'm going to an ortho tomorrow, have my shoulder fixed. But if anybody, I don't know if anyone's watching too closely, but, like, every time I pick up my water bottle, I'm, like, struggling. I'm, like, handing it off to, like, anyway, it's a whole thing.
It's your right shoulder.
It's my right shoulder, yeah. It's like my husband, like, taped it all up. It's all, yeah.
We could have gotten you, like, a really long bendy straw.
I really want that. That would make my life so much easier. So note to selves, if you're almost 40 and you did not grow up ice skating and you think you can ice skate, be careful.
Well, the moment in time that I realized, like, I was not a kid anymore was when I was think I was like just out of college and jumping on a trampoline, and I wasn't doing anything that should have resulted in like a totally sprained ankle where I couldn't walk. But just all of a sudden it was like snap. And I just couldn't even like get off the trampoline. I was like, I'm old now.
I'm old now.
That's it.
I was like, I can't do these things anymore. I can't be rambunctious and like spontaneous.
No. Well, especially jumping on trampolines after having 3 kids is also a whole, it's a whole problem in and of itself. But I have not broken anything on trampoline. Yeah, exactly. I was like, my kid was like, Mom, please, because she wanted to go ice skating for her birthday. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, I was like, absolutely, we'll go ice skating for your birthday. No, can you go ice skating with me? And I was like, I don't not want to be fun, Mom. Like, I don't want to be I'm just going to sit over here and watch, like, Mom. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll go. Because I can't ice skate. I have done it. I grew up rollerblading, and I've ice skated several times in my life.
Yeah.
It's just been 12 years, maybe more, and my center of gravity is a little different than it used to be. And so I'm like skating, and I'm getting like a little faster, and my other daughter's like, Mom, I didn't know you could do that. I'm like, well, she's easily impressed because it's not really doing much. And then I'm like, I feel good. This feels really good. I think I got this. I really do. I think I got this.
Famous last words.
Literally like a tree. I didn't hurt my wrists. I didn't hurt my knees. I just literally like landed like on my chest.
Pride comes before a fall.
Yes, it does.
Literally.
1000%. 1000% pride comes before the fall. And that is what happened. And I fell. And I just laid there and I was like, okay, so that just happened. Like, guess I can't do this stuff anymore. That's exactly.
Is anyone looking at me?
I was like, of course. Like 3 people came skating over. Are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I can't get up, but I'm fine. And so I'm like, where's my husband? So Nick's like on the other side of the rink, and I'm like, he like does a double take and he sees me, and I'm like, come here. I need you to come here. I'm like waving him over. Anyway, he has to like lift me up, like get me off the ice, and the poor ice like lady. She's like, can I get you some ice? And I was like, no, I'm fine. She's like, no, I really think I should get you ice. And I was like, I'm laying on ice.
I don't need any more ice.
I don't need any more ice. Literally, I was like, she's like, no, I really think I should get you some. So I'm like, okay, fine, give me the ice. And so she brought me the ice, and I'm just sitting there, and I was just like, what just happened? Like, still replaying it. Like, I still don't know how it happened. It was crazy. So yeah,
I've CrossFitted for like over a decade now, but I haven't competed in the open in several years, probably since
it's like a whole
I got involved in politics. But the last time I competed in the open, I'm trying to think. Oh, it's like my least favorite movement of all time. It's called wall walks, where you
sounds terrible.
You lay on the floor. You lay on the floor with your feet against the wall, so you're laying on your belly with your feet against the wall, and then you walk yourself up the wall
on your belly. With your feet? Okay, so
then you push up kind of into a push-up, and then you walk yourself back.
That
and
sounds
you walk
horrible.
So then you end up...
I'm like literally not capable of that.
In like a handstand?
You end up in a handstand with your face facing the wall. Your nose is touching the wall, and your chest is on the wall.
Well, that's what's supposed to happen.
And then you walk yourself back down. Okay, some of these monkeys in CrossFit, and I collectively, like men, women, children, like they can just... up the wall, back up, back and
forth. Shiloh would totally be able to do that. I'm not even kidding.
I have never been good at wall walks, and they were programmed for the open for the first time ever in I think it was 21, and I was doing it, and we would at my old gym we would always have Friday night lights. There would be lanes. We'd do heats. There'd be judges. It'd be a whole atmosphere.
It's like a whole thing.
It's a very, very much a culture. And so my sister and my granny even came over to watch me that night. They cheer me on. So I'm doing these wall walks, and I started off okay, but they had a standard, and you had to get your hands. They taped off a line, and you had to touch your chest to the wall, and all this stuff. And I got to a point partway through the workout where I was not all the way up against the wall, and I could not figure out how to move my hands. And so I just took a chance and tried to quick move one of my hands to get myself. I tumbled over. I mean, I just fell straight off the wall.
Which direction?
I
backwards,
don't even remember, but
sideways?
I had a bruise across my face. then everybody's like, "Oh, Abby, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine. My pride is bruised,
Yeah.
but you know."
And your whole family's there to watch.
I know. And like at the time, my sister was like dating this like really good like masters CrossFitter, like older guy, you know, but he was like really good, and his daughter was like the champion, the teens champion, and here I'm, you know. But anyway, that's my story of like feeling old.
We all have that moment.
Yeah.
I feel like it's because it's just, you'll never forget it.
Nope.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm probably not gonna ice skate again. Like, just because here's the thing. I was like, I have to go to an ortho. I'm gonna have to have something on. I'm probably gonna it's probably gonna be the most expensive ice skating trip.
Oh man.
I was like, we can't afford this. I can't afford this. But and like the most frustrating thing was like the middle of Thanksgiving cooking.
Oh no.
So
man.
yeah, so I'm doing all the cooking for Thanksgiving because I'm a control freak and I want it to all be the way that I want it to be. So I volunteered to do all the cooking, and I had a whole like list of like what I was gonna do in what order and like when I was gonna do it and all this stuff. And so like I got up that morning, we took my daughter out for breakfast for her birthday, and then I was like, we came home and there was like 2 hours before ice skating. And I was like, okay. The kitchen had already been pretty clean. I'm going to make 2 items off my list. And then when we come back from skating, I'll clean those dishes so then I can start my next round with a clean kitchen. And then I came home broken. And I was looking at the kitchen and looking at my list and like, oh my gosh, this is not happening.
Oh.
So my parents came to the rescue. They came over that night while Nick was like juggling the kids.
Isn't it funny how God just takes the
like,
control freak?
Yeah,
just
takes the control freak.
Takes the control away from you.
Yep. And then like, so my husband had to do all the turkeys, and then my mom's like, okay, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, okay, you have to just, no, but don't do that. It's too much. It's like, don't stir it that much. No, stir it more.
Is your mom a good Southern cook?
No, my mom does not cook.
Oh.
No, my dad did all the cooking. That's not true. My dad did a majority of the cooking, a lot of the cooking when I was really little. And then as we got older, he couldn't do it as much because he was working more. My mom did cook, but she didn't ever enjoy it, didn't like it, always complained. And pretty much as soon as we all hit like teenagers and higher, she was like, that's it, I'm done.
You guys are on your own.
You're on your own. You can all start cooking for yourselves or dad. And so now to this day, my dad does all the cooking. Like in the house, I think my mom might make breakfast once in a while. And yeah, so no, my mom. And she didn't really teach us to eat. We didn't eat Southern food.
No?
No, my parents are hippies. So when she left the South, she like left the South. And like we grew up on, we went to Whole Foods before it was a thing.
Yeah.
We grew up on like alternative like flours, like spelt flour, and we weren't allowed to have sugar, and
So they were just way ahead of their time.
Way ahead of their time. None of my friends ever wanted to sleep over my house because we always had weird food. And now some of those friends that I'm friends with still, they're like, oh, we get it. And now we feed our kids the same thing.
If you were like that healthy though, I feel like why are you not capable of ice skating in your 40s?
Well, because I didn't maintain it. First of all. That has nothing to do with health. That has to do with balance.
Fair.
So that was, and after you have children, your center of gravity gets thrown off, and this is a real thing. And like you have to like relearn it. And I've been able to relearn it in a lot of ways. And like but I don't ice skate.
Yeah.
So like literally, because I remember taking my first like Pilates class after I had my first daughter, and I could not get balance. And I was like, I don't understand. She's like, yeah, after you have kids, like you have to like relearn like your center of gravity. I was like, this is a weird thing for me. So yeah, so to be real, I have not relearned the center of gravity on ice skates.
And you never
And
will.
I don't think I ever will.
Not after that.
Not after this. This is too much. So what's funny is my dad, when he heard we were going ice skating, he's like, I'm going to go ice skating.
Oh.
And I was like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, I grew up ice skating every day, every couple of days. I went like multiple times a week growing up ice skating. I was like, I never knew that. And the fact that he's like 74 and he's like, I'm going ice, I'll go with you. I was like, I'll be more freaked out that you're going to fall. So he didn't, logistically, he didn't have the time. He couldn't come. But he's like, maybe I'll take her to ice skating sometime. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever, Dad. You're 74. You can do whatever you want. But
well, I'm not taking her anymore, so somebody's got to.
She'll go on her own. I'll just sit there and watch. But if you want to go on, she wants someone on the ice with her. But be my guest. Just, oh my gosh. So my dad's an interesting. He's character. He can name every like you. He grew up like very much political. Like he was door knocking in his building in New York when he was like 6 years old with his family, and so he can name every presidential.
But he was a Democrat.
Yeah. They were
Yeah.
Jewish Democrats. Yeah.
Yeah.
New York Jewish
She
Democrats.
said New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
assumed.
Yeah, assume. Yeah, he switched during Reagan.
Okay.
Maybe a little earlier than Reagan. But he was a more conservative Democrat. He was he wasn't I can't remember. He was a more conservative Democrat. He supported a lot of the non-mainstream Democrats. So he can name like every political like presidential race going back to like 1950 and the primaries. Like for both parties. It's crazy. One night on the way home from an REC meeting, I was like, so Dad, blah, blah. And he just started telling me, like, when I was 6 and this person was running for president and this was the primary. And
So
this
like
was
he remembers it as he lived it.
Yeah.
It's not like he memorized
No,
something.
he lived it. I mean, he can still go, and he can go from now all the way back to his whole life. He can name every presidential race ever since.
I hope I can do that when I'm 74.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
It's impressive. I was like, I hope I can do that too. And he knew all of the primary candidates. Like all of it. And he was like, let's go. So my dad's pretty OG on politics.
Has he ever been a guest before?
No.
Not yet. We want to have him on. So we'll see. If we can get sponsorships going into 2025, my dad will be a guest on our show. So, if you want to hear from my dad and hear his stories.
So
he's got
speaking
lots
of 2025, what does 2025
Yes.
have in store for you?
2025, I think, is going to be like just a super exciting year. Starting with January 20th and moving forward. Right now, I'm super focused on Institute for Faith and Culture, growing that organization. Coral Ridge has a family of different ministries, also a Center for Christian Statesmanship in Washington, D.C.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sweating.
You guys doing okay over there?
I am.
I'm struggling.
Repair.
I'm sweating. I'm trying to take my jacket off.
Shout out to the Institute for Faith and Culture and Coral Ridge Ministries in general. They were such a huge force this November for No on 4.
Vote No on 4. Yes.
No on 4, especially No on 3 to a lesser extent, or
A little bit.
a little
yeah.
bit, but No on 4.
Super passionate about No
Yeah.
on 4.
And I just really appreciated all the work that you guys did.
Yes.
Thank you.
She was
Stepping
telling
into
us
the
a lot
void
about it.
Yeah, looking at that amendment and what the repercussions would be in Florida had it passed,
Yeah.
it was just it was the most radical abortion amendment that any state has ever looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us as a church, we're obviously pro-life, and one of the fewer churches that really is very active in the public square.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see that change. And
Yeah.
I think Amendment 4 brought a lot of churches back into the public square on an issue that mattered.
Well, they had to make it. They had to take a stance.
They had to. Yeah, it was like you're in or you're out. Kind of like my college story.
Yeah.
Of like you speak up or you don't, but this is when you decide. But Coral Ridge, since really the 80s, since its founding, has always played a role in national politics, in kind of that conservative religious movement, like the moral majority back in the 80s, with our founding senior pastor D. James Kennedy, who was pretty prolific in like TV broadcast and radio.
He's written a lot of books too.
Wrote a ton of books. Started Evangelism Explosion, which is an organization that brought the gospel to every single country in the world. So it's pretty neat to be able to say that there's never a time when the sun is not shining on a place that's been impacted by that ministry. But all that to say, he passed away years ago at this point. But there's a new generation that grew up under the teaching of Coral Ridge. I went to Westminster Academy, their K-12 school. Our senior pastor now, Rob Pacienza, he grew up and was mentored by Dr. Kennedy. And so there's a younger generation that really has taken that mantle and is moving the ministry forward. Same mission, but different time frame, new technology, just new fights to be had, new things to fight against. So with Amendment 4, it was so clear to us that we wanted to be bold on the issue. We wanted to encourage other churches to speak out. I know at Coral Ridge we had like a 6 or 7 week sermon series on politics and the kingdom of God.
One of the ladies that was working on one of my the campaign I was working on, she goes there and she was telling me about this series.
Yeah, and a lot of people that don't know what I'm talking about and just hear like a blurb about it, they're like, oh, so you're like the Church of MAGA. And I'm like, well, no, not even close. For us, instead of having like a political philosophy, we really have a political theology, which is one step deeper than your philosophy. So it's like, what is the belief system that actually impacted the reformers like Martin Luther or the founders like George Washington? And so understanding like who created us, why we were created, and that we live best when we live in the design that God created for us it empowers us to go out and do things like be a part of shaping culture. So the public square is one of it. And with Amendment 4, it was just so clear to speak out. So we did a ton of different stuff. We did voter registration leading up to it. We did some voter registration of unregistered Christians throughout the state of Florida with a big Vote Your Faith campaign. Some ads and some commentary. Obviously, No on 4. We distributed hundreds and hundreds of signs, and was just really pleased to see it defeated. But I do think it's a great testament to, like, you have to speak up and be a part of it, or things like that will pass.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a super close margin, but it was close enough.
It was too close for comfort.
Yeah, and if there hadn't been such a bold move against the amendment, I think it certainly would have passed. And in Florida, we're one of the few states that did defeat a pro-abortion amendment.
Yeah.
You look at so many other states, even when the polling says that their voter population is pro-life, they still voted pro-abortion.
Do you think it's because we have a 60% requirement? Because if we would have had a 50%, it would have passed.
Yeah, I think the 60% certainly helped. I think that Governor DeSantis was such a just bold, courageous leader on the issue. I think he put a ton of resources behind seeing it defeated. And I also think it's a messaging issue. You look at Ohio and a couple other states, and after they had votes on their referendums and had conversations with voters, they weren't clear on what they were voting on. Their personal values didn't translate into the way they cast their vote. And that's, again, we got to be better about our messaging. We got to be more disciplined. Early on, when Amendment 4 first got on the ballot, there was a group that did a lot of focus group testing and said, okay, what's your opinion without knowing anything? Now we're going to educate you. What's your opinion now? If I told you this, would your opinion change? No. If I told you this, would your opinion change? No. Over and over again until they said, yes, that would change my opinion. And then they did it again with another focus group. Another focus group really figured out that the main thing that would change most middle of the road people was looking at the actual text of the amendment. And that's why in a lot of the messaging and commercials, you actually saw the written amendment, and it had that red writing.
No definitions, no parental consent,
and
all that.
I think that as a No on 4 campaign and its affiliates, we were very message disciplined. And that's really important. There weren't groups going well, let's post pictures of aborted babies and let's do
that's distracting and emotive.
Yeah, and that would only compel people who are already going to vote No on 4. And so, like anything in politics, you need to find the few people that are in the middle that are persuadable. You're not going to find somebody who has had 7 abortions, loves abortion, and volunteers at Planned Parenthood and convince them to vote No on 4. Why are we even going after that person?
Right.
And so I think just there's a lot of things that came together, but praise the Lord that thing was defeated, because if it had passed, the most dangerous place for a person to be in Florida would have been in their mother's womb, and that's a really scary thought.
Yeah. So all right, so I interrupted earlier with my struggle to get my jacket off, but going into 2025, what are you up to?
So continuing work of the Institute for Faith and Culture. We have a sister ministry, the Center for Christian Statesmanship, up in Washington, D.C. Basically, that ministry is to support elected officials and their staff, how to apply their biblical values to the work that they do. So again, kind of that concept of your faith isn't just a Sunday morning thing. It really should impact the way that you do your profession and the way that you, not just how you interact with people, but the policies that you're voting on, or the information that you're feeding to your representative to swing how they vote on public policy. And so working on just basically expanding that organization. There's a lot of new lawmakers that'll be in D.C. This upcoming year. And so reaching out to those folks, letting them just know that the Center for Christian Statesmanship is a resource for them. And then one thing that the Institute for Faith and Culture does is we produce a lot of different content, podcast, written, video. And so working on new content, things that are applicable specifically to hot button issues of our culture today. Right now I'm working on a pro-life kids curriculum starring Dr. Alveda King, which is pretty neat.
I love that.
And it's the first of its kind, believe it or not. We did a lot of market research, and there's nothing that does a really deep dive for elementary school age kids on what it means to believe in a culture of life
No.
Probably because it's a really like touchy
It's
subject.
Oh, it was. I will tell you this: navigating the vote no with my kids was very hard.
Yeah.
Because they saw me talking about it. They saw we have the sign in our yard. Like they know, vote no on abortion, vote no on 4, vote no on 4, and they knew what the word. They knew the word of the abortion. No on 4, no on abortion. But they didn't know what an abortion is, and my kids are young, and so we were out one night at like a community event, and there was a woman wearing a vote yes on 4, and my kids were like, she wants to vote yes on 4. What does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
What does that mean? And so we got asked a lot, especially by my oldest one, who's like really starting to like pay attention, but she's still just a little too young that just a little bit. I'm like, one more year, I think, a few more months. And so, especially because once she knows, then telling the other two, and then I got like my 6-year-old who's like, hey. And so, yeah, because it's hard to broach that subject without it being like super intense. And so I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
It was something that was difficult to write, like putting the script together, working through the curriculum.
So like a curriculum like that for like homeschool parents or for schools, or what's the like
it's
place to put
it's
it?
a video and written component. It's 8 modules. Each module is maybe like 3 to 5 minute video portion, a couple pages worth of like everything from talking points for like a teacher to talk to a class or a Sunday school, or a parent to talk to their kid, to like craft ideas, to questions. Basically, like you could use it in a multitude of different settings. So you could do it at homeschool, you could do it on Sunday morning at church, you could do Vacation Bible School with it, and you could use it at a private Christian school. But yeah, when I was writing it, it was super difficult because you're like, how do I explain this to like a late elementary school child?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a super big believer of like, if you're not teaching your kids, someone else will.
Yeah.
And you like so want young kids to have that like time of innocence, but at the same time, it's like, well, they're going to be robbed of that at some point. And so you just, it's like, I want to be the one that at least gives them like the first narrative, right? Like,
no, and like as a
parent,
exactly. As a parent, that's a lot of what we do. And so we use tools like that to say, okay, well, when it's time, the right time, and we stay on top of monitoring, because my kids do go to a private Christian school, but you still never know. So we're always like monitoring, like what conversations are they having with their friends, like what are they talking about, and when's the right, like each kid's going to be a little bit different.
Sure.
So I think that's awesome. Yeah, I can imagine how hard it would have been to put that mindset on. Of like,
but it was really rewarding. And in part,
is it available?
So it'll probably be available the first quarter of 2025. So it's in post-production right now.
That's awesome. All right, you'll have to keep us posted.
Yeah, it's I think it'll be a great tool for parents and for really anybody who cares about the next generation. And we part of the filming was Dr. King actually presented the content to a classroom of students, and so we got to see how kids interacted with it, and that was a really neat couple of days of filming. But yeah, that's coming early 2025. Other types of curriculum like that, not necessarily for young people, some for adults. We're doing something with Dr. Vodi Bakum on biblical manhood and womanhood, and what does that mean? And I think that's just a needed conversation, because so often, like, people with Judeo-Christian values are pigeonholed into being these like backwards, antiquated, hateful people. And I'm like, well, I'm a modern day, like pretty independent woman, and I feel very empowered in my role working for a Christian organization. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a minister, and I'm not trying to be, but I never feel like my gender is like something that prohibits me from being able to go and be successful and work in this area of policy and worldview and conservative politics and that type of thing. But I do think that it's important that people can have a really healthy understanding of what is biblical manhood, what is biblical womanhood, and know that it's like a really positive thing. And goes back to what I said earlier of like, if you live within God's design for you, you're gonna be way better off. Like it's not not a thing that's like suppressive. It's a thing that's gonna really unleash like human flourishing. So that's another curriculum or program we're working on. A couple of TV shows that are going to be produced. It'll be definitely on digital, having some conversations with a couple different TV channels, which would be cool. But that's probably too soon to share, but just really exciting things coming up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool.
Very cool. Maybe some political. I mean, 25 is going to be a pretty quiet year politically. Well, maybe.
We've got governor. It's gonna go. I think it's gonna pop off like the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But we got a few, like in Broward, we got a few March municipal
couple March
races.
municipal races.
Oh yeah, we got Boynton Beach. If you want to watch something crazy, watch the mayor's race in Boynton Beach.
Oh, yeah?
It's going to be fun.
I know nothing about it, but now I'm gonna have to take a look.
Just take a look. It's Boynton Beach. Boynton is known for. How would you compare Boynton to? I know. This is why I'm the only Palm Beach County person here tonight. I need help. Boynton is like. It's small town politics. There's a history of crazy corruption, of crazy manipulation of the sitting people. For people to get in, they have to punch their way through to get elected. Like it's like really intense. And there's always the players. There's the kingmakers. It's like a chess game.
It's like a mini House of Cards.
Kind of, yeah. I feel like that without the whip. But yes. Anyway, so Boynton Beach has like their mayoral election coming up, and it's an open race.
Okay.
So it's gonna be fun. I would recommend keeping an eye on that one.
Yeah, the Deerfield mayor's race is an open seat this year.
Yep.
So it's gonna get exciting. That'll be Boca in 2026. Will be an open
got
seat.
some interesting characters already filed to run.
So we've got municipal elections, but I think by the middle of next year, I think the governor's race is gonna start getting like interesting. We'll see.
Well, yes, and also, I mean, even seeing like where DeSantis ends up or not in the Trump administration, and how he fills Marco Rubio's Senate seat, and if he really weighs in much on any of these congressional races that just popped up as special elections, and the CFO race.
It's crazy how much Florida politics has just shifted just by all these appointments.
We really are trying to make America Florida.
Well, apparently,
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
as long as we get good people taking those spots.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. Oh, we gotta wrap up. Have you guys been watching what's happening with he appointed the sheriff from
Hillsborough County, Chronister, and he turned it down.
Yeah. Well, he had to. Trump said no. Took it away from him because he arrested Rodney Howard Brown.
Yeah. He was like, you can't go to church during COVID. I'm gonna arrest you.
I remember that.
Trump didn't know that, I guess.
And not.
Then found out and was like, never mind.
Yeah. So did he resign from his?
No.
So he still holds his sheriff's seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I think Matt Gaetz is really the only one that
he
resigned
prematurely,
and that was like a whole other thing. So
I know. I wonder what's happening there. But, so all right. Well, any last words you want to share before we wrap up for the night?
No, I'm just grateful to join you guys. Thanks for letting me.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for coming. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be like, thank you for having me, but if I'm the guest host, then technically you're welcome. Thank you for allowing you to be on my show tonight.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for coming. It's been great. Anything else, Abs?
No, you want me to do the Jessica's usual bit?
Yeah, that'd be good because I don't know what to say. But December 19th is our next episode. It'll be and we'll have our guest. We're in
State Senator and incoming Minority Leader Jason Pizzo.
Minority Leader. It's going to be interesting. Get your questions ready.
Yes, and the popcorn.
It's going to pop off. And that'll be our special, Christmas episode right before we close out for the year.
It's not going to be like last year's fiery, but mostly peaceful.
It won't be fiery, but mostly peaceful. Well, I don't know. It might.
I mean, it could be. It could get spicy.
Democrat coming on. It could be.
We'll see.
So, all right. But anyway, have a good night, guys.
All right. Yeah. So you can find us on all social media at WeTheLocalsFL. You can email us at WeTheLocalsFL@gmail.com. Head to our website, WeTheLocalsPodcast.com, to find out information on if you want to sponsor the work we're doing here. We got a whole page dedicated to that. And just drop us a chat, or if you have questions, if you're watching this on replay, you can always reach out to us on any of our channels. So thanks for watching. We miss you, Jessica.
Miss Jessica and Stu. And thanks, Nick, for getting us all set up over here.
Thank you, Nick, for getting us set up before the show. Everybody have a good night. And remember, stay local.
Bye.